I'm Matt Hampsey, park ranger with Jean Lafitte National Historical Park and Preserve. The Tunica-Biloxi tribal nation is based on a federal reservation near Marksville, Louisiana. You may wonder how a sovereign nation of Native American tribes came to be in Avoyelles Parish in central Louisiana. Join us today as we learn more about the Tunica-Biloxi tribe. Long before any Europeans set foot on this continent, Tunica, Biloxi, Ofo, and Avoyelles peoples were thriving in this region. The impact of European contact resulted in native communities weathering the effect of disease, war, discrimination, economic decline, and dispersion. Yet, they are still here today.
Tunica-Biloxi population consists of 1,512 tribal citizens. The vast majority live here in Marksville. We have over 300 that live in Chicago and over 500 that live in Houston. We are extremely proud of all of our tribal citizens, in particular our tribal youth, and as well as our tribal elders who collaborate with us in decision-making processes.
Tunica's recorded history begins in 1541, when the expedition of Hernando de Soto and his Spanish army encountered the expansive Tunica village at Quizquiz, an area along the Mississippi River in present-day Mississippi and Arkansas. 150 years later, French missionaries happen upon a now smaller tribe, perhaps due to disease, further south down the Mississippi near the Yazoo River. The tribe found the missionaries useful for their access to European goods and protection from larger enemies. And this began a decades-long alliance between the Tunicas and the French.
The Tunica people were insightful. The smaller tribes were banding together because there was slavery going on. The bigger tribes would capture the smaller tribes. That's why the Ofos were with us, and we thought that by befriending the French, it might be a way of protection. Also, the French needed help. If it wasn't for the tribes that lived in the region, they wouldn't have survived here in Louisiana.
The French valued the tribe's military and diplomatic support, but the Tunicas were also prized as accomplished entrepreneurs, controlling the trade of salt and horses very strategically, always at locations where rivers meet. Both French and Spanish colonial governments came to depend on the Tunica tribe.
We were always at a confluence of rivers, and that was for trade, that was for transportation. We had this connection with the Caddos that went into Texas, down into Mexico, a big trade route. And so they had the value of materials that helped their neighbors, like the French, survive. They also had a diplomatic value because they could bring tribes together, bring them in the fold to at least have a dialogue with the colonial powers. So we had that value that the colonials recognized.
The tribe's success in trade is proven by the extraordinary wealth they amassed, which we see today in the Tunica treasure. Treasure, you ask? We'll get to that in a second. Over time, unrest in the region forced the Tunicas farther south to the junction of the Mississippi and Red Rivers, known as the Portage of the Cross, around 1706. About 25 years later, a devastating attack by the Natchez tribe pushed the Tunicas south again toward Trudeau, now known as Louisiana's West Feliciana Parish, and westward to Point Coupee. Colonial rivalries persisted between European nations, and in 1764, with the culmination of the 7 Years' War, the French gave up their land claims on the Mississippi Valley, giving control to the Spanish and English and placing it under the dominion of opposing empires. The Tunica tribe utilized its powerful political influence and networks to survive. Along with the Ofo and Biloxi tribes, the Tunicas executed an impressive assault on a large British naval envoy, which gave them significant leverage in the region.
It was after the war where the British had won some of the lands that were on the east side of the Mississippi River, and they thought they could just come in. They had this large flotilla of soldiers and goods they were trying to transport, and they were trying to go from New Orleans up north. And Tunica and some other tribes basically ambushed them on the river, and they had to turn around and go back. You know, we had already had a relationship with the Spanish, and they were asking us why we did this, and the answer was that the British had not introduced themselves and did not establish a relationship with Tunica. Even though we were such a small group at that time, it was important because we knew people, we knew the value of what we had, and we needed to show them that they needed to negotiate with us and have a relationship with us.
When the American Revolution reached Spanish Louisiana a few years later, Spain sided with the colonists, and Tunica warriors fought side by side with Spanish Governor Bernardo de Galvez, attacking British posts at Manchac and Baton Rouge. Following these battles, Galvez invited the Tunica, Biloxi, and Ofo peoples to settle on the Avoyelles Prairie near present-day Marksville, Louisiana. Is this the end of their story? Hardly.
The Tunica and the Biloxi people had moved into this Avoyelles area, and we still had trade with the colonials. There were local French settlers here that we had relationships with, we traded with. But when the Americans took over, they kind of disregarded a lot of the treaties and the relationships that Spain had with the native tribes. And they had people that were doing land claims, land that had been set aside by the Spanish. And so it was during the American period that we really kind of went into obscurity.
Their land was taken away from them 1 inch at a time, but that really allowed the Tunica-Biloxi community to come together, to really be known as a family that whatever challenges life threw at them, they was resilient people. And they leaned and depended on each other, and they leaned and depended on their faith, which carried them through each and every day.
In the 1920s, Chief Eli Barbary pursued the union of the Tunica, Biloxi, and other regional tribes to amplify their voices and gain federal recognition.
Early 20th century, we were poverty-stricken. Some of my ancestors were trying to keep us organized and revive our language, our customs, our ceremonies. Then my great-grandfather, Eli Barbary, he was more practical and knew that we needed some help. And it was probably the recognition of the federal government, but it was a long road.
In the 1930s, a delegation of Tunica-Biloxi tribal elders went to Washington, which was a 3-month journey. And unfortunately, they was turned away and said that Tunica-Biloxi didn't have any rights to be known as a tribe.
I think they had gotten to a point where they thought it was hopeless, you know, with the poverty and lack of access to a lot of services.
Because of lack of job and education here, the federal government felt that it would be best to encourage our citizens back in the 50s and 60s to move to urban areas for job opportunities. So they provide them with a $40 and a bus ticket to Houston or Chicago, and a lot of them took advantage of that.
But there was enough tribal citizens who said, no, this is where we're from, this is our land, this is how we identify ourselves, by the place where we live. And thank God for those people, because having a land base was important when we were trying to go through the acknowledgement process.
Over the following decades, persistent political activism by tribal leaders, including Chairman Earl J. Barbary Sr., led to success in 1981. The Tunica-Biloxi finally regained its sovereign status.
The Tunica-Biloxi tribe has made a lot of progress since our federal acknowledgement, and by doing so, it allowed a lot of tribal members to move back home.
we could receive federal grants. And then we started looking at economic opportunities. We created foundational documents such as our Constitution, our legislative codes, our own laws. We created our own tribal court, law enforcement department, social service department, health department to provide services to our tribal citizens.
After attaining federal recognition, the tribe's traditional culture was more publicly revitalized. In 2011, the Tunica-Biloxi Cultural and Educational Resources Center opened for the tribal community and visitors. With a museum, library, and meeting spaces, the center hosts a variety of camps and events. The center's museum offers firsthand access to the impressive Tunica treasure.
One of the main things I love about my tribe is we have what's known as the Tunica treasure. It is still one of the largest archaeological finds here in North America. It is not only important for my tribe, but other tribes because we do have collections of Caddo pots, other tribes' pots and baskets, which help connect not only the Tunica-Biloxi, but other tribes throughout the southeastern region with our trade routes. And right behind me is actually our preservation lab. Back in the day when it was first built, it was Brent Barbary Sr. and Earl Barbary Jr. who worked in here and restored the Tunica treasure because when it was originally found, it was in pieces. And from the last time I was told, it is now 99.9991% done.
Robbed from the graves of the Tunica village near Trudeau, these items were repatriated to the tribe from their unlawful owner in 1985, thanks to intervention from the state of Louisiana and the Tunica's new status as a federally recognized tribe. You are welcome to visit and see the treasure for yourself. And what is the Tunica-Biloxi community up to today? For one, the tribe has undertaken an incredible effort to restore its native language.
Heini, ima tiana etisa, ima taworuni luchironi, ima taworu luchironi, ima Karen Crow, Louisiana shi anani. So hey, my name is Tiana. I am a Tunica language teacher and student, and I'm from Karen Crow, Louisiana. So one of our biggest challenges is we don't have any living speakers. So when we got everything that was documented by linguists, they had verbs, they had nouns, they had sentences, they had stories, and then we could figure out grammatical patterns and just kept building upon that. And for the last 2 years, we have actually been testing our tribal members that come to classes and kind of building a core curriculum.
Now that we are established and have departments and they've dedicated resources to our language and culture program and revitalize traditional crafts, sport, things that our people did, it's something that's going to help sustain us and maintain our identity.
Start now, the annual powwow here in Tunica-Biloxi country. Coming in the grand entry, first session, Saturday afternoon, here in Marksville, Louisiana.
This is not just another powwow. This is the coming together of our tribal family from every part of the United States, celebrating our cultural tradition, life ways.
The powwow is an opportunity for all of us to reconnect, to see cousins we may not have known. And it's a way to also connect with other tribes and their traditions and their cultures.
Here we go, Southern style, our gentleman's dancer. This style of dance comes from the great state of Oklahoma and the southern part of this country, and it's made its way all over Indian country, and it's been a very important part of who we are as Native Americans.
There's a certain energy where you feel like you belong to something bigger. And it's been a sense of pride for our community, and that makes my heart swell, and it makes me feel optimistic about the future.
In addition to its cultural impact, the Tunica-Biloxi tribe continues to have an important economic impact on Louisiana.
Grand Casino is now Paragon Casino. We manage it ourselves, and we've been operating for the last 29 years. Also now is our hopes and goals to build 100 new homes on the reservation over the next 5 years, create 300 to 400 new jobs, because we truly believe in where we're going economically. We're going to capture new heights as far as advanced manufacturing, creating a food sovereignty program, and addressing mental health, not only here in this area, but throughout Indian country. And all that is attributed to the entrepreneur spirit of Tunica-Biloxi community.
As the Tunica-Biloxi tribe continues to grow and thrive, its members will continue their positive impact on the region's cultural and economic successes, just as they have for centuries.
Tunica-Biloxi been here for hundreds of years, and Tunica-Biloxi is going to always be here. We are resilient people. No matter what was the situation our ancestors went through, we never allow our hurts to shape our vision. We allowed our hopes to shape our vision, and that hopes allow us to see our God-given purpose, and that purpose led us to our destiny. And our destiny is to be leaders of not only Tunica-Biloxi Nation, but all of Indian country.
You are invited to learn more about the Tunica-Biloxi tribe by visiting this dynamic community in central Louisiana. Thank you for watching.